does financial independence actually mean to you?
It's interesting because it has the word finance in it, so it'd be easy to really focus on the money.
How do you make time for family time? How do you make time for personal time? How do you do that?
My legs can still run at 6 o'clock in the morning, so get up a bit early. I'm a morning person anyway, so I'm used to getting up at that time. But I think I was just in a more open mindset because I was starting to look at that degree of things.
Welcome. I'm Tracy Irwin and I'm passionate about financial independence and wanted to share stories of inspiring entrepreneurs to prove it's possible for everyone to strive towards financial freedom. Today, I'm talking to Andy McArdle. He's a postie in Edinburgh and also runs his own business as a partner of Utility Warehouse. And he lives with his partner Danielle, and they have a daughter, Lily, of 12. Welcome, Andy. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I've been looking forward to this conversation. We've had a few conversations in the past, haven't we?
Yeah. Just to update you as well, we've now officially got a teenager. She just turned 13 recently, so
Wow.
officially got a moody teenager.
Is she moody yet, though? I don't think she'll be moody yet.
She has her moments, but she's
Yes.
all good. She's good.
Us
We're lucky.
women all have our moments. I don't care how old we are.
Don't get me into that subject, Tracy. I'm not here for that today.
No.
I'll split the audience.
Let's talk about financial independence. Let's stay on a safe subject. So, what does financial independence actually mean to you?
I think for me, it's interesting because it has the word finance in it, so it'd be easy to really focus on the money. And I think it's always going to be an aspect of anything when you want to do something in life, it's generally costs money. So of course that's an aspect of it. But for me, it's the choices that it gives you. Being able to wake up and decide what you want to do each day, have that free, not having to ask permission, to go traveling, to just not work today. I don't feel well, I'm just going to have a day off, refresh. Just having the choice, to choose what you do each day, being able to maybe put down work if there's health concerns with you or family, friends, it's not glamorous stuff sometimes, the freedom, but it's choice, isn't it? I think that's the key word. And I think just having that availability to just be there for people, spend more time with people, I think for me that's the key thing.
It is. I think you've hit the nail on the head, by the way. It is about choices. Like when we look for financial independence, it gives us more choices in life in general. And you created your own financial independence by like starting a part-time business. So, do you want to tell us how you juggle having a full-time job and running a business at the same time, please?
Yeah, listen, it's challenging, and I think for me the reason why I choose to do it is there's a couple of reasons. One, I really enjoy what I do. I feel like it's beneficial to people. I help people in a couple of ways, whether that be saving money or, helping them to start their own income journey, which I'm hugely passionate about. So it's something that I care about. I don't feel when I'm doing work with Utility Warehouse that it is actually work. I just feel like I'm doing something so that's key. But I think the other aspect is that I think it's worthwhile doing. The difference with going into an employment job, which until Utility Warehouse was all I ever known, was that as soon as you stop working, those things that I spoke about a couple of minutes ago, if you have your own maybe sickness concerns or you're grieving, like grieving is normally an employment depending on who it is. Is it your mum and dad? Okay, that's fine. We'll give you some payment for that. But if it's the auntie who raised it up, you might have to really prove that that's you know what I mean? It becomes a bit silly, and not having to ask those questions and explain those things during a grieving process. I think building something that is worthwhile to give you those things I spoke about earlier, the freedom and the choices. I think it's worthwhile committing to now, whether that takes you 2, 3, 4, 5 years or longer. Is it going to be quicker than just, I think my path before was always about to get more money. It was always about investing more time and stress. Whereas with what I'm doing now, it started to gradually, and now I don't work my day off. Now I don't necessarily work later on in the afternoon. Even already, it's given me upfront choices, to be honest, and it's gave me a little bit extra freedoms as well. But I think, the underlying thing is that is it something that you really enjoy doing? So it's worthwhile committing that extra time because you value it, you enjoy it. but the end result is going to be so much more worth it. And I think, any day when I'm thinking, God, I'm exhausted, I don't want to send out those messages, or I don't want to pick up the phone, or I don't want to sit on this call tonight, you think of the bigger picture. But for me, I'll be honest, there's not a lot of times where I feel that way because I do enjoy what I'm doing. It's not the same feeling as going into an office or going into a job where you feel like, oh, I'm just going here to pay the bills. You actually are looking forward to jump on a call with someone. I've actually got one later on tonight, and I look forward to that, just the chance to speak to someone new, see if I can find ways to help them. And that's it. And for me, it's something that I really feel like strong about in terms of building something for the future.
And it is about building your future, isn't it? If there's anyone else, if there's people out there listening to us talking about, and they're sat in a job that they don't particularly enjoy and they're thinking of starting something new, like what's kind of what advice would you give them?
I would weigh up that decision. I think it's a question I've started getting a bit more brutal, if you like, in asking people, because the common reason I get back is, oh, I've not got enough time. And I think what employment does give you is a bit of certainty. Okay, if I stay at the office an extra 4 hours, I'll get paid an extra 4 hours. Or, if I work my day off, I'll get paid a full day's wage. And I know that means I'll get the finances with that. So there's a certainty with that. But if you think of what you've lost, you've lost that time. You probably feel a bit more fatigued. Have you spent time with family and friends that week? Probably not because you've been working late at the office, or you've worked your day off, etc. So I mean, for me, that's the most common reason I get back is no, there's not enough time. And I always start asking people now, when will that change? And so my biggest thing would be ask yourself, when is your situation going to change? If you've got something where you want financial freedom, you want to be able to make more choices, you want to do more things, spend more time doing things you enjoy with the people that you enjoy spending time with. If that is important to you, is what you're currently doing, and by doing more extra hours to get more money, and, because I appreciate people are under financial stress a lot now, prices of everything's just, I get that. But when's it going to change? You're going to have to do something new. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be what I do, but for you, what is, just ask yourself that question. Spend a bit of time, journaling, exploring ideas. I would just encourage people to have a real look at what they want in life and ask themselves, be honest. Spend a bit of time just with themselves and say, is what I'm currently doing, the path that I'm on, is it that, yeah, if I keep going the way I'm going in 3 years' time, my life's going to look a lot better? Or are you still going to be doing the exact same thing in 3 years' time? It can be quite brutal, but I think those are the sort of things that you have to ask yourself and make a decision. And look, if you don't want to make that difficult decision and invest your time in something else that's going to give you a better future, that's fine as well. But you obviously can't then expect your life to change. What's the saying? If things for things to change, you have to change. It's cliche, but it's very true. It is true.
It is. So for when people say, I don't have the time, because obviously having a job and doing something else is quite time consuming. How do you ensure that you still take that family time? How do you make sure that you don't end up literally like, I want to say working, and I know you don't see utility warehouse as working, but
It's
how do you
okay, you
make
can say
sure that
it.
you're not like doing like from the moment you get up till the moment you go to bed? How do you make time for family time? How do you make time for personal time? How do you do that?
I think, open and honest, I wasn't great at that at the start. I remember going into networking, for example, and just constantly filling my calendar up with one-to-ones. I'm quite passionate about, keeping fit, going to the gym and doing runs. And I remember I was getting things like I have my Calendly set up and I would have people book calls when in my calendar, I had planned to go to the gym, for example, but I hadn't told anyone that on Calendly. I'd left it open season because I was just trying to grow the business. And I remember speaking to a life coach and at the time, and I mentioned that to her, and she says, "Well, how were they able to book the call?" So I made those mistakes at the start where it was very much like just trying to fill too much business in, and I think the classic example of that is you end up burning yourself out. But I think for me, I've got better at planning. I've noticed I'm quite a morning person. So like a recent change I made actually just within the last year was my full-time job started moving a bit later, so we finished a bit later, and I found my evening was getting very stressful. It was trying to compact family life, a gym session or a run session, and my business all into the evening. I'd maybe be outside the gym messaging people or doing a social media post. And, in reality, the quality wasn't there in my business, and the quality probably wasn't there when I went into the gym as well. So reflecting on what you can do, because it's very easy to say, oh, well, my work's moved later, it's terrible now, I've not got enough time, and you excuse yourself. I think I had a look and I said, well, my gym's open at 6 o'clock. My legs can still run at 6 o'clock in the morning, so get up a bit early. I'm a morning person anyway, so I'm used to getting up at that time. Get up, have your stuff, have my gym equipment and or running stuff ready the night before. And that's gave me the evenings now. That's gave me the evenings to have just family time, bit of refresh after my full-time job. And then later in the evenings, a lot of time I'll do my business. There's loads of things you can do when you put attention on it and don't just make excuses. You can plan your posts. So I know people that'll do their Monday to Friday posts on a Sunday. So that means when they're not having to sit and try and, because if life pops up and you are not done your post yet, you might feel, oh, I've never done my post today, or when I did it, it was later, or it was not the same effort. So I think planning and reflection all the time is a huge thing because, again, it feeds back to if you really want to make a success of things, what are you willing to do? What commitments are you willing to make? But I've always been quite conscious, since that early mistake with overbooking, networking, etc., that I'm trying to build this business to spend more time with family.
Yeah.
But I was conscious quite early on that I didn't want to not do that in pursuit of it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I noticed when I was doing too much networking, I was actually sacrificing family time for a business that was trying to give me more family time. And I thought, well, life's short, you've got to treat the now as well. So I kind of changed things and said, right, plan everything in, plan the fitness, plan the family time, and fit the business around. And for me, I'm lucky enough that I can do that, and if people are wanting to see what you offer anyway, they will book, so make your calendar available. I think that's something you're actually really good at from our previous conversation as well, Tracy, booking in, set days. So this is my day when I network and this is my day when I focus on clients, etc. I think that's brilliant. And I actually learned some tips when I last spoke to you about that as well and took some things in for myself. So thanks for that.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, so I was doing the same as you, well, similar. I know that I work better in a morning, and all my mornings were booked out. And then I had my afternoons free for people to book calls, and then I was doing client work in between. And then I started networking, and all my afternoons they looked like Swiss cheese. They were like a half an hour here and half an hour there, and it's like I have got no time to do proper work, like deep work. So I changed and I now only do one-to-ones on a Thursday. And I love my days on a Thursday. I don't even see them as work anymore. I just connect with people, I talk to people all day. And Monday to Wednesday, I do discovery calls and I do client calls, by the way, because they're more structured and but my one-to-ones, which I do love doing, are all in a day. I mean, there's some days, by the way, I don't even have a break on a Thursday. If I've been networking a lot, I can see they're all like up, but it's just so much nicer. So yeah, it is. I think it is about planning. Um, and like you said, a lot of people get into business so they can spend more time with their family and do the things that they love, and they end up being so unorganized that they end up doing the thing that they wanted to do they can't do because they're like working too many hours themselves. So that was interesting to know that, like, not only do you have you built a business, but you actually have a job too, and I think that's even harder to ensure. So your planning must be brilliant. Do you plan financially as well as like in your calendar?
I don't actually at the moment. I think for me that side of things I definitely need to get better at. I think where I'm quite lucky with utility warehouse is it's something that I've been able to fortunate enough to build naturally. It's not something that's a booming thing after one week. It's something where there's a lot of relationship building, trust building, people getting aware and knowing that you're the person to come to when their time is suitable and is needed. But I think the nice part is because I do have the full-time job, and although initially that might have seemed like a problem, you've got the full-time job and you're trying to fit the business in, it's actually allowed me to build the business in a natural way. I'm not desperate on putting food on the table kind of thing and providing, because I think I do appreciate having met many people through networking as well, that must be challenging. If you set up a business and you get to a point where you're like, this needs to happen sooner, this needs to be successful sooner, or, I'm going to go back to agency work, or, I'm going to have to go back to a job. And I think there's an emotional thing that comes with that for people as well, where they feel like they've failed. I've left this and I have to go back to it, kind of with your tail between your legs. And I think I do feel like utility warehouse is actually a fortunate thing where you can gradually build it alongside other things. It's full of busy people who do many professions, teacher, police, various things. Um, but you're gradually building it and you're building a residual income. So the only thing I sometimes do focus in on is I have a little look at my residual income and just make sure that that's growing
Yeah.
and try and project a little bit of how that's when that gets to certain levels, when can I start? Because my next aim is really to come down at least part time in my job. That's certainly my aim. And I'm conscious that as soon as I do that, I've then got more time for family and I've got more time for my business, and it should make the growth of things a lot better. But as I said, even initially, I can sit on a call for like 30 minutes and make more than what I would have done working my day off, to make two or three times more what that would have. And the crazy thing is, if I plan it well and if it works out nicely, on my day off when my daughter, I'll take my daughter to her school, I'll drop my partner off at her work. If I have one or two calls, I can earn a few £100 whilst they're out at school and work anyway. And when I have a day like that, and I've maybe done one or two network calls as well, I feel so productive. And I've also probably been to the gym and maybe a run in the morning, one of them. So I feel really productive. And this is what I'm kind of a little snippet for me in the future, I think, is doing all that. And then when they come in, I don't really have anything booked in the evenings on my days off because I've done it all during the day. So I kind of treat those days off from a full-time job as a snippet for the future, how I would like to operate in the future. I probably in the future would not have anything in the evening.
Are you working harder than ever, but feeling like you're getting nowhere? You're not alone. Most business owners I speak to feel trapped in their own success, working 60 hours plus a week, missing family time, and honestly, they're not even sure why they feel so stuck. They just know something needs to change. If this sounds familiar, I've created a quick quiz to help you find out why you feel stuck in your business. It takes only 2 minutes and I give you clarity on exactly what's keeping you trapped and, more importantly, how to break free. The link's in the description, so why not take it now? Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I would build my. But I'm fortunate enough that I can now do that instead of if I worked my day off. One thing is I would be probably really fatigued instead of energized. This work with utility warehouse makes me feel energized. I don't feel fatigued. I can do it from home. It's remote. It's so much different. Whereas if I'm out and it's a physical job, I'm coming home tired. I might come home late. My energy with them and for anything in the evenings would be a lot different. Yeah, I've made a bit more money, which is helpful, but I feel like I'm doing it smarter now. And I'm not. The other thing is I'm not working my days off. So I had a really nice example last week where on a Friday my daughter does her horse year, for example, and that was something that we financially wanted to get to a point where the residual income was able to fund that,
Okay.
so that she could go consistently. So she goes every Friday now for her horse year, and I had my day off from a full-time job on Friday, so all I did was a couple of calls in the morning, and then that was me. So I went and spent the full day. But in the past, I might have been inclined to be like, there's a lot going on now. We're booked for a holiday in October. I'd probably have that in my mind, and I'd probably think, do you know what? I need to work my day off. Um, and it'd be that horrible moment where you're like, I really should be down seeing my daughter. It's meant to be my day off, but we need the money. Now I don't really have to make money with utility warehouse that sacrifices time with family because I can work it so that it's either before or after or horse share or just general time with them. So I think for me it's the fact that I can work a little bit smarter already, and not sacrifice as much family time is absolutely brilliant. And it's just little small snippets of what I want in the future, basically.
I love that. I love the fact that you see your day off, what you do, as your future self. Like, have
I
you
didn't
thought?
initially, by the way. I actually had a couple of years ago. I remember having a couple of weeks off work, and I was having that little ideal life. And I remember the first day I went back to work, I was like, oh no, I have to cram this all back in the evening again. And I was in a little huff. And I kind of, that was another reflective moment for me because I kind of said, well, wait a minute, how could you look at this a bit differently? And that was when I got to that state where I was like, oh, well, to be fair, you're allowed to grow this business not in like I'm not having to go knock 500 doors or really be dependent on this being successful quickly. I can do it in a way that makes me feel comfortable, but I know it's working. And I know it's getting somewhere in the future, and I can see the road. That's the important thing. But yeah, no, listen, I've had my moments where I was a bit like, oh, going back to work after a holiday was particularly challenging, but I've seen it in a different light now, which is a good place to be.
So how different is your mindset from when you just had your job to actually like now maybe your calendar's a little bit fuller, but actually so's your bank account. How's your mindset different for when you're actually like looking to either purchase bigger things or go on holiday and things? How does that change for people?
I think for me, the mindset in general, since starting my own business, has been like massive, like a massive plus. Like the personal development, I think for me, just kind of some aspects that I do away from business, like journaling and goal setting, was a good starting point for me. And I think because I was actually doing that, and then Utility Warehouse was shown to me, I think I was already in a mindset that was a bit more open to it. But I
Okay.
think the thing where it continued and accelerated a bit for me was the fact that it was goal setting, looking ahead and actually having something that was like really worthwhile going for. You weren't just trying to save for that annual holiday, the 1 week holiday that you go on every year, and then you've got a full horrible year trying to save for that again. It didn't feel like that. And I think for me, the mindset now is that it's a bit more long-term thinking. It's a bit more about the time that you're going to spend with people.
Yeah.
It's not just about like, let's try and like initially my journey with Utility Warehouse was inspired by trying to save for our like first family home. It meant a lot to me and Danielle just to try and get on the property ladder. Our own families hadn't grown up like that, and we kind of thought it'd be nice to show our daughter, a little bit of hard work between us, save up and get a nice home. That sense of achievement and it's kind of show that aspect of life where if you put a bit of effort in, you can achieve something. So that was important to us initially. And I think having Utility Warehouse there matched up well with that. It allowed us to help save for a deposit. So that was like the goal setting side of things. But after a while, I started to realize that, this isn't going to be just a business where I'm looking to just save up a few £100 and then buy the next flash thing, buy a new phone or something like that. It was the residual income after a while started to really grab a hold of me. And I thought, that's the one where if you've got enough money coming in for work that you've done in the past, that's where the choice is coming in. So my mindset now is completely went onto that. Whereas my mindset before, as I said, financially was very much like, okay, right, to get more in life, I need to work more hours, work longer, work my day off, try and get a promotion, which traditionally comes with a 60, 70 hour week and more stress and taking work home with you and all the lovely things that come with that. And I was very close to going down that path. A few times I've been put in positions for like promotions, like supervisors and stuff like that. The interesting one now to give you, this is probably the best example on the question you've asked around mindset, is in my work, I've been offered a couple of times to go down, start going down. I'm a workplace coach, but I've been offered to go down a couple of times the route of management.
Yep.
Now, instantly that would be more money, and in time it could be a lot more money. And I know my partner sometimes does think, you should do that, it solve worries a lot quicker. But in my head, I'm like, it contradicts what I'm trying to build with Utility Warehouse. Because immediately I would be doing more hours and I would find it more challenging to do my business. I'd be doing my business less. And it's more that I think if you're asking for one sentence of it, it's more going for a long-term mindset than a short-term. That's where my biggest changes came, definitely.
That's nice. And it is important to like So for people who are of your generation, like, what would you say for those who think they're not old enough to start thinking about long-term wealth? Like, what is it for you that's the difference to like, because I think sometimes there's a lot of people that don't start until it's too late. And what would you say?
Do you know what a weird thing is? I would say that just start because it's actually because I've started that I've found out what I'm doing is right. I don't know if that makes sense with you, but I mean, I think for me, I would relate to anyone who's feeling like that because I certainly probably in the very back of my mind, I mean, I'm deep in the back of my mind, was probably thinking, at some point I'll get a pension for a reward of all my years of work in employment, and that'll probably be quite good, and I can, well, it's kind of late 60s, early 70s the way it's going, I think, I can have some sort of nice retirement and for all the years that I've worked. But I think I've realized now, like, why would you wait? One, you're not guaranteed to wait. You're not going to be in your fittest fettle at that age. Why would you wait to get something like that? Like, why should you wait? And I think the scary thing for me, and this is, I actually discovered it after starting my business journey, was I realized I was fortunate enough to speak to people in my business who have been doing it for a long time and obviously have seen that change actually come to fruition, and so you've actually got someone's life experience there, and I've also been fortunate enough to have someone who was involved in the finance banking industry who understood that whole aspect and then did utility warehouse, and he was great at explaining, what a pension really looks like and what we can potentially have, and that you can have it sooner. And I think there was no going back once I seen that, once you see that, you just think, if I could get like in my 40s like this residual income to a point, or even if I got to 50, even if I was extending it and saying 50, that's so much earlier than, you know what I mean? But then I was also noticing that there's short-term benefits anyway. I was able to have that house savings help, save up the deposit during the cost of living crisis. I was able to go away some nice trips with family whilst I was doing that. So it's not like you're having to wait long and sacrifice and just wait on this long-term journey that you can't see with UW. You can actually get some upfront benefits. Even like I said, for me, it's massive not having to work my day off or work a couple of days a week later into the afternoon because that's what I used to do. If that means I'm not ever working a Friday because my daughter's got her horseshoe and that's my day off. Like it's just opened my eyes massively. And I think honestly, I would just say have a real think about why are you waiting? If it's people like probably most people were like me and just not actually, at a younger age, you're probably just not even thinking about it. You're probably just
A
thinking
lack
and
of
go,
understanding, or do you just think it's like, as human beings, like many people just feel like the future's so far away that they're actually not thinking about it?
yeah, I guess I've never overly thought about it, but I think for me, if I was thinking about me, I think I've always just kind of spent whatever I've got in an employment job. I think when I was young, it was very much like whatever you got paid, you spent and going, out. You were starting to go out to pubs and clubs and things like that, and you just kind of spent everything you got. And I lived with my mum, and it was just kind of like, yeah, it'll be all right. There'll still be food and drink on the table, and I think then all of a sudden you start your own family. That's a big thing where you are starting to get a bit like, all right, I need to, and you start appreciating what you had when you were a bit younger, and I think when you start getting a bit more conscious of money, that's when your maybe mindset's like, right, okay, I need to, look for a better job or I need to get a promotion and I need more money. And now I've got a family, now I've got a house, now I've got a car, now I want to go on a nice holiday and a nicer holiday, and it's all financial orientated. Um, so that brings that pressure, and you're really trying to. But I think you're just constantly thinking of the now, and I think that's probably only getting worse because of the financial constraints. Because people react quite negatively when they're hearing like, oh, put money away in stocks, and people are like, I need every penny I've got. That's how I think people will be feeling right now. That you hear these like smart money advice and put money away and leave it there. People probably genuinely feel like they need to have as much money as they can. But for me, I think the utility warehouse is a really unique thing where you can work it in a smart time frame. It's not something where you would do 60, 70 hours a week. And it's funny because the mindset of people I think is an interesting thing that I've picked up when they ask me about utility warehouse. And I get where they're coming from, but I think it's from that employee mindset where they'll ask me, are you full time with utility warehouse yet? That's a common question I'll
All
get.
right, okay.
And I sometimes just say, not yet, or just keep it simple. But in my head, I'm thinking, if I was going in this a bit more depth, I would actually say to you, my plan is to never get this full time. My plan is to step away from full time employment, but not to do utility warehouse full time. The aspects of the business I would love to do day in, day out, I think is definitely mentoring and supporting because it's something that I just don't feel, you're just helping people and just working with them and being there for people. But I think the whole aspect's not to feel like I'm not wanting to go from a full-time job into a full-time job with utility warehouse, if that makes sense. So,
Yes. Yeah.
but no, to get back to the question, I really think that you just need to have a look at something that's offering you a chance to work a bit smarter. And don't sacrifice your time. Don't spend 60, 70 hours just putting money on the table to go to provide that one holiday or to provide that nice Christmas. Think of what's going to give you time like all the time, so what's going to give you each month a lot more time with your family. It might even, for some people, it might just be a change of, like, I'm going into an office and I commute an hour or two every day and I lose that time. Can I do something similar or something that'll be good at from home? Just ask yourself that, ways that, because I think nowadays there's loads of opportunities for people to work from home, and all these different things. And I think that's what I found. Like my example was, I can go on a couple of calls from home, roughly giving up an hour, hour and a half of my time whilst my family's out versus and earn more money potentially
Yeah.
versus going in and investing in 8, 9, 10 hours a day with traveling and everything and losing some of that time with family and then also in the evening feeling really, really fatigued. So there is ways that you can work smarter, and I think you need to think a bit more short term when you're thinking of, oh, this job will be great for me once I get to my pension because you're not guaranteed that age, sadly enough. And I just think, why would you wait? Your life's now. Spend more time with people now. It's the biggest thing that I really push for in my business. It's not just the money.
Your business is successful, so why do you feel so miserable? Here's the thing, success doesn't always automatically equal freedom. I see profitable business owners every day who can't take a holiday, who can't switch off, and they feel completely overwhelmed by their own achievements. Sound familiar? Well, I've created a simple quiz that pinpoints exactly why you feel stuck in your business. It will give you the clarity you need to move from being trapped to being free. Why don't you take the quiz now? The link's in the description below. If somebody's sat listening to this who would like to be able to find that freedom of choices, but they're stuck in a job, like what's the first thing they should do? What would you think is the first point? Like you've said you do journaling and things. Is it kind of like where would you go?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that was where my mind was going to go. I was going to say journaling. Interestingly enough, I don't think journaling directly took me into UW. I was actually just looking to join UW as a customer, and that's how I discovered it.
Okay.
And I had no idea where it was going to like take me. I didn't realize that it was going to become such a big part of my life. And I guess that's one aspect of this as well, is where be open to things, be open to opportunities. Do something that maybe feels different. You might just discover that you're really good at it. You've got, a passion for it. I genuinely had no background in what I do, and I had no inkling that it was going to be something that I just thought it was going to be a bit of extra money to save for the house. I didn't really know it was going to become this. Um, but for me, it was taking me into a world where, residual income and things like that. I just didn't know there was a way of working like this that was a lot smarter that doesn't just take you away from your family. Like anything else that I ever thought was a money improvement was taking you away from, there was a sacrifice for that money and you were having to wait on a big thing at the end of your career, you know what I mean, for a long career of working. But I think journaling would be my first step because I think when you start journaling and putting ideas down on paper, it becomes real. I don't know what it is about writing, but I think the big thing as well is the fact that you're then starting to really like how often in your day when you're if you I'll use my example when I used to go to my job and I was just in like a bubble. You know, I was just going to work and I was just working and talking away to people and about football and stuff. I'd come home, I'd pop the chase on, you know, quite we laugh about it now. I used to come home and just sit in front of the TV, have my dinner, bag of Doritos, bag of sweets or whatever, and hopefully the football or something was on, and that would be me. And then I would go to bed and I would do it again the next day. And I thought I was living a life. You know, I was providing money, I was working my day off, making money, and I was doing my best. I am so different to that now. And I think when you journal, I think you start. I was distracted by everything, you know. I was distracted in work because I'm busy at work. I'm distracted by the TV. I'm distracted by the football, and I was never really thinking ahead. You know, what am I actually wanting out of life? What am I capable of? What can I do? I think when I started with the journaling, and then I was doing that, and then I started utility warehouse and I was bringing in money and realizing a different way of working and going to events. And I was surrounded by all these really motivating people. And then networking became a part of that as well. You know, people like yourself, once you get to know people who have got their own journey and maybe they're at a different end of it where they can actually share their experience and you know, you become a bit of a sponge where you're learning from people all the time. So I think when you start giving yourself a little bit of time, you know, turn the TV off for an hour and actually write down, you know, am I happy with what I'm doing? Is there, you know, what am I actually, do I enjoy my job or what am I wanting out of life? And what, you know, rate yourself on how you're doing in different areas of your life. There's a degree of honesty because you're just writing it to yourself. Nobody else has to see it. Um, and I think that starts the ball rolling in your head, you know, where you realize, you know, I should be doing more. I can do more. And that is a big thing. But yeah, I think because that, to be honest, that never actually had anything to do with how I started. But I think I was just in a more open mindset because I was starting to look at that degree of things. So, yeah, that would be my answer.
I agree, actually. I think that journaling makes us honest with ourselves because we like looking and we're asking ourselves questions and there's a couple of things that you said in there that was really insightful and it's about surrounding yourself with people on similar journeys who tend to have been gone further than you. And I think having those people around you actually motivates you to do something. So when there's people who, you know, they are working a job, but they don't really want to do that, they want to kind of have a bit more freedom, they want to work for themselves, they've had this idea in their head. But if they hang around with other people who work 9 to 5 all the time, that idea is never going to be talked about. So it's kind of like finding people who you can become that person with, I think. And it's like, and sometimes that is yourself, it's sometimes it is journaling and sometimes it's networking, but you've got to go out and find it and start action. I think a lot of it just comes down to action, doesn't it? And I think, yeah, you may, I think your action, by the sounds of listening to your story, your action was wanting to get on the property ladder. And I think a lot of people's action is that there is so many people who struggle to get on the property ladder to find a way to be able to save. I mean, that I'm really proud because it's really difficult to be able to like, you know, people rely on parents or, you know, and it is kind of
Yeah.
to be able to do it for yourself must have been a really great proud moment for you that you've been able to pass on to your daughter now as well, and she'll see that. So yeah, I think that's it's really interesting. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Andy? I'm really interested.
I think the as my journey has kind of went on, I think you know, initially I was really passionate about kind of copying the benefits that I seen. So initially I seen the benefits of becoming a customer and you know, I've been pretty good, pretty successful at replicating that. Over the last year or so, I've worked quite hard because I realized the first time I shared a bit of success with a team member, there was something different there where it wasn't just, you know, an income-based thing. You know, it was more like, you know, because this is the thing I started to change my mindset as well when I realized, like, okay, you're talking about getting this to a stage where you leave your job and it's something that you do all the time. You know, it's something that you do through choice, and you need to sort of then ask yourself, is it something that you're actually going to enjoy, or are you going to do this and then go, oh, I actually don't like this? And I think the aspect where I really zoned in on over the last year or so, especially, is the mentoring, supporting, bringing other team members in. Um, I think it's where I feel like I'm making the biggest impact. You know, And I think the word that again, this was through journaling, to be honest, reflecting myself, was I realized that was the aspect where, you know, I had started off thinking, oh, the biggest impact was, oh, I loved what I benefited from as a customer. And that's still great, but what's better is it becoming a customer? Is it what it's done for me being able to give my daughter her horse share every week? Is it saving enough whilst there was a cost of living crisis and I had days of strike action in my work? I was able to save my house deposit. That's the sort of thing. And I started thinking, right, like, what's the bigger story here? So I've been working a lot over the last year on sharing my story, even personal development. I've had family members say, like, you're so different now. Like, if you're in a room with people, you're not shy because, and I think, you go networking, you start getting, you have to speak to people you don't know. But this is the thing. I've not walked into my business and been full of life and confidence. Like, I've learned it. I've had to go through the hard first time going networking, absolutely terrified, didn't know anyone in the room, had been advised to go, and you sometimes just have to do something that's fearful. But I think for me now, I really want to start building a bit of a team spirit, a bit of a group that'll come to events, be like basically a friend, like friendships, like I actually want it to be something where, it feels like an environment, it's a successful environment. And, I think there's nothing bigger for me than, if someone gives me a powerful reason why, um, it doesn't have to be the house deposit, but that will be one where it's getting more and more difficult for people. I'm seeing posts a lot just now about, like say the average or just above average living wage. Once you take away gas, once you take away electricity, once you take away fuel costs, once you take away the mortgage payment, what are people left with? That sort of thing. So, sorry, I should say rent payment. So if they were paying rent and stuff and trying to save for a house, you're right. I mean, the sad thing is the most common ways I hear that people get a good deposit nowadays are usually from a parent or something maybe sadder than that is maybe a parent or a grandparent who's passed away and left them a bit of money,
Yeah.
and that's how they fall onto the property ladder, and you speak to people before where there never used to be such a high deposit charge. You used to just kind of prove your affordability and stuff. So, if I can work with someone and share my experience that gets them to a point where I then see them flourish and get their own house or start going on that consistent holiday with their family that they've not been able to do in the last 3, 4 years. Whatever the reason is, people can have whatever reason they want. But I'm now in a position where I've worked hard on a bit of leadership skills. Again, I invested the time in reading books and stuff that, recognized what I was good at, what I could work at, because I want to be in a position that when I find the right people, I feel like I can help them. There is an aspect of what we do where you do have to have a bit of self-drive and get out there and you said the word action, you do have to do that. But I want to also be the best person that's there to encourage them, support them, help them in their difficult moments. And I think in 5 years' time, I'd love to think that I'm now starting to create my own team that are really doing things within UW. I think that's where I really want to be.
Fab. Thank you. So that leads me on to where can people get hold of you? How should people get in connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I've got my own personal Facebook group. I'm on Instagram. I kind of more post for that with a mixture of family as well. But yeah, just put my name out there. I do have my own website, so if you search my name in Utility Warehouse, you'll find me on there as well. I've got my own branded website with UW as well. Yeah, and I'm always open to chat. And I never knew what the UW opportunity was going to be for me. I'm always open to having a chat whether people are just looking to save a bit of money, they're intrigued to see what it is I'm doing. I became a big advocate of networking in terms of connecting with people. I think especially one-to-ones. So if anyone's maybe not interested at all in the UW stuff, but they want to speak to me about networking, some of the stuff I've maybe shared that, going into a networking event for the first time and things like that. Because I must admit, even, if you are just thinking about doing something different and getting around a better, maybe you feel trapped that the people that you're around are never going to understand your ideas and things like that. I would encourage people to go to a networking event even if you've not got a business. I know it might sound crazy, but having experienced what a lot of the rooms can be like now, I would encourage you to do that. You'll be amazed how many people are in there that can help you. People that have got business startup ideas, marketing ideas, etc. You can start getting that business out there. Um, I mean, networking rooms are like free advice. If you meet the right people and connect with the right people, and you'd be surprised where it can take you. I've been grateful to meet so many people like yourself and many others in my business journey. So, yeah, I'm always happy just to connect and get a chat with people, find ways that we can maybe collaborate with each other and stuff as well. So, yeah, I'd be more than happy to speak to people.
Thank you so much, Andy. I will put your details in the description of the podcast anyway. So, but
Brilliant.
thank you again so much for speaking to me. I've really enjoyed it. Hope to speak to you
Thanks
again
for
soon.
listening. Thank you.
Thank you for watching to the end. I really appreciate it, and it shows that you are serious about moving your business forward. I want to share something with you. When I was little, I watched my mum skip meals so my brother and I could eat because she didn't have enough money to feed us all. That pain changed everything. I promised myself I would never need to rely on anyone else financially. I worked relentlessly towards financial independence. Even as a young parent of 19, I still worked. And once I achieved financial independence, I became passionate that everyone deserves the same. But here's what I've discovered. Successful business owners can feel financially trapped just in a different way. And that's why I created the Money Metrics Academy to help you understand your essential business numbers in under an hour a week. No jargon, no overwhelm, just the clarity you need for true financial independence. Why not join the free entry-level membership and see how the community can help you? Let's get unstuck together.